Good day, grade 9s. I'm Mrs. Todd, and today's lesson will be about the mining of mineral resources. In this section, we are going to look at what different minerals can be mined, the different mining methods, and how we are able to extract the different minerals in their natural forms. Firstly, let's start with the lithosphere. If you can remember from the previous section, the lithosphere is the solid outer part of the Earth, and it includes the upper section of the crust of the mantle. So the lithosphere, with regards to mining, provides us with many important and valuable resources which we are able to remove and extract that are valuable to us as humans. Minerals of the lithosphere. The form in which we obtain these minerals is in a substance known as ore. Ore can be defined as the rocks that are extracted from the crust of the earth that contain a large concentration of minerals. These minerals can then be valuable to us, but the way in which we mine them is first through ore. Two examples which we'll get to later is iron ore and copper ore. In order to remove the iron, we first remove the ore and then we extract the minerals from these pieces of ore. There are some minerals that can be used in their natural form, which means once they are obtained or once they are removed from the surface of the earth, we are able to use them like it is. An example there is diamonds and sand. But there are other minerals or other substances which first need to be refined before they are used. Two examples of these types of minerals are gold and copper. Now let's have a look at the different mining methods which can be used to remove these minerals from Earth. Firstly, we have a very common way of mining, which is underground or shaft mining. Second, we have open shaft mining, which is closer to the surface of the Earth. And our third method of mining is something known as panning. Let's have a look at underground or shaft mining. Underground mining uses shafts which are used to go beneath the surface of the earth. These shafts are drilled or that go vertically down into the surface of the earth, and horizontal tunnels are placed next to the shaft in order to remove the minerals. This process or this method of mining can be a dangerous procedure, as miners need to go deep into the surface of the earth in order to extract the minerals and ore. This process or this method of underground mining can be an expensive process, as there is a lot of equipment and construction that is needed in order to remove the ore and the minerals. Some examples of the minerals that are mined underground is gold and diamond. Our next method of mining is open shaft mining. Open shaft mining is close to the surface of the earth, which means there is not much underground work which needs to be done in order to obtain or to remove the minerals. The excavating through the crust of the surface takes place from above the surface, which means it's a safer method for miners in order to extract the minerals. Open shaft mining is also a cheaper process than underground mining, and it is easily accessible to get to the materials. An example of a mineral mined above ground is coal. Our last method of mining, which you should know, is panning. Panning is a method of separating particles from soil or gravels by washing in a pan with water. The particles which we are referring to here are small pieces of mineral or valuable rock. This process is usually done in a stream or in a river, and there is no machinery needed. This is due to the small-scale findings of minerals. An example of minerals that can be panned is gold and titanium. Now we can have a look at refining of minerals. Some minerals can be used in their natural forms, whereas others must first be extracted from the ore and refined before we are able to use them. Some minerals can either be extracted by physical methods like breaking down of rocks or using explosives or even panning. Gold and diamonds are your typical example of easily extractable minerals, but there are other minerals that have to be extracted by chemical methods, and iron and copper first need to be refined before we are able to use them. So let's have a look at a method of extracting iron. For this section, we are going to compare the traditional way to the modern way of extracting iron and copper. Firstly, our traditional way occurs when the smelting of iron ore is used in a clay oven. The oven has a small chimney and side openings for natural ventilation to keep the temperature high, and 2 workers were expected to blow wind into the oven to increase the temperature. The coal was then burned to heat up the oven and the iron would melt. However, our modern method of extracting iron and copper. Firstly, we need to extract the iron from the iron ore first. Iron is then treated to remove the carbon that's found within the iron ore. To extract the iron, a blast furnace, which is what we will explain in the next section, a blast furnace is loaded with iron ore, coke, which is a form of carbon made from coal, and small quantities of other materials. The air is then pumped into the blast furnace to increase the temperatures to around 1200 degrees Celsius. Molten iron is then transferred to a different furnace where it is then blasted with pure oxygen to remove the impurities. Something important to remember with our modern process is that the lower carbon percentage, the better quality of steel that can be formed with iron. This can also improve the strength of iron by adding nickel, tungsten, and chrome to the molten iron before we use it. So let's have a look at the process of extracting iron from iron ore using a blast furnace. Firstly, air blown into the bottom of the furnace is heated up. The iron ore, coke, and limestone, as well as any other scrap metals, are then placed into the furnace. The coke will then burn in the blast of hot air to form carbon dioxide, and this is the main reaction for the heat source of the furnace. We then have molten slag, which will then be tapped out of the bottom of the furnace, and this is a waste product of molten ore or melting ore. And in our other tap hole, molten iron can then be tapped out and used in its solid form. One of the excess products from this reaction is hot waste gases, which is actually used to heat up the furnace by using the hot air blast. With regards to the reduction of iron ore, which means trying to make it as pure as possible, at the high temperature at the bottom of the furnace, carbon dioxide will react with the carbon to produce carbon monoxide. And in hotter parts of the furnace, the carbon itself acts as a reducing agent. The carbon that acts as a reducing agent will then bring about the reduction of iron in order to make it pure iron. So let's have a look at the reason for us adding limestone when we add the iron ore and the coke to the top of the blast furnace. So firstly, iron ore is not pure iron, and it contains an arrangement of different materials that would not melt at the temperature of the furnace and would eventually clog it up. So the limestone is added to convert the excess rocks that are found within the iron ore into slag. The heat of the furnace will then decompose the limestone to give calcium oxide, meaning the limestone will not play a role in the reaction of the melting of or the reaction of giving us molten iron. It just decomposes and prevents any of the excess rocks from clogging up the blast furnace and the tap hole specifically. So the heat there will then decompose the limestone to give us calcium oxide. So CaCO3, which is the formula of limestone, gives us CaO plus CO2, which is calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. So again, the main purpose for adding the limestone is to convert the excess rocks into slag to prevent it from blocking the tap holes in order for molten slag and molten iron to be tapped out. Now let's have a look at mining specifically in South Africa. In many ways, South Africa's economic activity has been dominated by mining. Specifically within South Africa, gold, diamonds, platinum, and coal are the most well-known minerals and metals that are mined. However, we do have a high volume or a high amount of chrome, vanadium, and titanium, which are also mined within our country. Let's have a look at some of the locations of maps found within South Africa. As you can see on this map, there are many different mines that are represented. The two that we are going to look at is gold mines and coal mines. Gold is represented by these yellow dots spread roughly towards the middle of South Africa, and coal is represented by these grey dots or grey squares over there. So as you can see, we do have a various amount of of metals and resources or metals and minerals that are mined in South Africa, shown on the map below. Having so many mines in our country, there are multiple environmental impacts that come with having a thriving mining industry that contributes to our economy. So unfortunately, with the good that mining does for our economy, there are many environmental impacts that contribute negatively due to mining. Our first one is mine dumps. A mine dump is an abandoned area of previous mining that's made up of a complex mixture of metals and dust particles, which makes that land inhabitable and arid, meaning we are unable to use that land to sustain life, whether it be for plant growth or for people living in that area. Our second negative environmental impact of mining is the pollution of water resources. Mining requires a large amount of water during the extraction process, and mines will then dump their waste into water bodies nearby. This then changes the pH of water, which changes its acidity levels, as well as the water quality in that water body. This then in turn affects the ecosystems found in that area, meaning plants will be unable to grow, animals might not be able to consume the water, and humans living in the area will not be able to use the water. Our third negative environmental impact is the damage to the environment. This is mainly in the form of air pollution and waste that is released from mines. This destroys the natural areas as well, and the construction of mines will also destroy our natural area. Meaning, if there is an area where it is determined that there is a large amount of valuable resources, a mine will be constructed in order to obtain those resources from the mine. Our fourth environmental impact or negative environmental impact is the loss of agricultural land and wildlife habitats. Mines tend to take up vital space that could be used for farmlands as well as wildlife protection areas. So unfortunately with mining, it contributes positively to our economy, but unfortunately it contributes negatively to our environment. Thank you for attending my lesson grade 9s. We'll see you next time for the atmosphere.